Hello, and welcome to the Institute for Transformational Thinking. I'm Ben Decker. I'm the Director of Education here at the Institute, and I'm so excited to be presenting this very special online seminar, World Peace Now, a discussion on the power of mindfulness as a force for change. I'm honored to have two remarkable teachers joining us here today. First, we have Ora Nadrich. She's the founder and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking. She's a mindfulness meditation teacher, a thought coach, creator of the Thought Coach Certification Training, and author of Says Who, How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever. Thanks for joining us, Ora.
Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
And next we have Alan Clements. Alan was one of the first Westerners to ordain as a Buddhist monk in Myanmar. He's lectured all over the world on the wisdom of mindfulness, global human rights, environmental sanity, democracy, and the preciousness of everyday freedom. He is a spiritual and political satirist with a one-person show called Spiritually Incorrect, in defense of being human. He's the author of numerous books, including A Future to Believe in, The Voice of Hope, and Instinct for Freedom. Welcome to the Institute, Alan.
Greetings, Ben. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you. And of course, welcome to our students and participants to this online seminar, World Peace Now. Now, Ora and Alan, we'd love to hear from both of you on our three topics today, which are: one, how mindfulness supports personal transformation; two, the relationship between individual and planetary peace; and three, creating revolutionary social change through mindfulness. Let's get started with our first topic, how mindfulness supports personal transformation. You're both prolific mindfulness teachers, so ladies first. Ora, would you like to get us started?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Ben, for moderating this conversation with my dear friend, Alan Clements. Alan, it is so nice to be here with you, having this conversation that we've talked about many times, we wanted to have, and I so enjoy sharing this time with you today.
An honor, Ora. Thank you.
Yes. So let me begin with how mindfulness supports personal transformation. For me, I want to say that mindfulness supports personal transformation by, first of all, keeping us fully present in the moment so that we can be completely aware of our words, our behavior, and most importantly, ultimately our actions. When we are present, we can be that much more cognizant of what our true intentions are. And, that means that we then are staying awake and conscious so that we can hold ourselves accountable for what we say and what we do. I like to think of mindfulness as something that needs to be sustained constantly, and yet when we sidestep mindfulness, we run the risk of slipping into things like old habits and patterns of thinking and fall into the traps of small-mindedness. And that's when our personal development towards transformation can really get compromised, meaning that we lessen and diminish our awareness, our awakenedness, which is almost like a dulling of the senses. If we, really regard, mindfulness and transformation is something to support and develop and nurture and strengthen in ourselves, then we know that mindfulness is really the only practice and mental discipline that that can support us on the path of true transformation. So, I would ask, how do we do this? How do we do this with consistency and constancy, which is really the hardest challenge I feel in our lives, to stay constant on the path of mindfulness. I believe that if we commit to mindfulness, and it can be arduous and it can be demanding, but there is no other way other than to make a concerted effort, a commitment to mindfulness, to being present, to being aware, to being awake every moment of our lives. And if we're vigilant about how present and aware we are of not slipping out of mindful awareness and into the distractions of selfishness and greed and things like avarice, we then are aware when we are stepping out of the moment and going into these areas that can be very unmindful. We make consistent efforts, if we do in fact make consistent efforts, to be kind and compassionate towards others and don't always put ourselves and our needs first before others. That is how we can support and strengthen our own personal transformation. You know, mindfulness is a full-time occupation of the mind, the heart, the soul, and the spirit. We mustn't lose sight of our commitment to be fully awake, aware, and conscious at all times, because it's just far too easy to fall asleep at the wheel of our life and surrender to not wanting to work as hard and to be our most divine conscious selves.
Beautiful. Alan, did you want to share your thoughts on how mindfulness supports personal transformation?
I'm realizing, just listening to Ora, that I'm much more mindful at the moment through the inspiration to care for the quality of your presence. I mean, I think that's what I felt with you, Ora, is to, first of all, see the foundation of mindfulness, which is to see things as clearly as possible as they really are, as if you're going to the front door, the doorbell has been rung, and you have a very special guest there. You show up. I mean, that's the basis of mindfulness as I understand it. You show up. Show up with a high degree of etiquette, a concern for the quality of one's presence. We hear this over and over again, showing up in our lives. But showing up isn't enough. We must be there with what you've said, or a heart, with the quality of care, with eyes and ears and heart as wide open as possible, and to listen, to feel, and to know. Now, if I can just be spontaneous here, which of course I think that's what we're asked to do, you know, having lived in a monastery in the country of Burma, also known as Myanmar, you know, it's 20 acres and one of 260 different mindfulness centers around the country itself, a country the size of France or the size of Texas. You know, millions of people in Myanmar have practiced mindfulness. And I was blessed to be in this monastery in the 70s and 80s, where we had sometimes up to 15,000 people in silence, sitting in meditation, walking in meditation, eating in meditation, practicing this timeless quality of present time presence. And, you know, it was so interesting to me to practice it like this for nearly a decade, but also to see hundreds of thousands of other people practice it and how teachers there communicated what is this timeless quality. And I think that's important for people who may be listening to hear things, ways to feel it. There isn't just one way, but to feel what mindfulness is and begin to insert it, to play with it, to embody it as a living, direct experience of being, a living, direct experience of being. So what is mindfulness? Excuse me. It's as if you were holding hands with the most important person in your life, and you brought your attention, your awareness, which is synonymous with the mindfulness, and you brought it to bear upon the hand of the other. And you felt. I heard that over and over and over again for nearly a decade there. Mindfulness is the ability to feel. Where, here, when, now. Feel, F-E-E-L, feel. Feel that which is present. When you hear a sound, you feel in your ear the vibration of auditory sensitivity. You hear the sound. You hear in your mind's chamber the formation of the thought. If there's an emotion that's associated with the thought, you feel the state of consciousness. And if you can see here that mindfulness is this capacity to feel and to know, feel and to know. And from that knowing, you begin to understand that which is present. So it's not just to be present, but to know what you actually are feeling. And right there, a key quality of mindfulness is to choose. Mindfulness has intelligence imbued in it. It feels, it sees, it knows, and it discerns the right course of action from the compromising course of action. So, for example, when you're present and you are greeting someone at the door of your own being, and you hear something that's extremely pleasant, you can experience the sound, the emotion, the quality of pleasant, the joy that arises in your mind, as if you are aligning this quality of seeing, feeling, and knowing, and discerning, and choosing all along the inner landscape of present time presence. So you co-join mindfulness with the experience of living. And it's essentially bringing choice to our lives. The choice to see, hear, taste, smell, touch, the choice to discern what is the right course of action from the wrong course of action. So I think it's really helpful to see mindfulness as a sequence of experiences. One, it takes us to the front door of presence. We see who's there, whether it be a person, a thought, a sound, a color, an image, a state of consciousness, a pattern, a habit. Whatever it might be, we show up for it, we see it for what it is, and we discern over time what actually is the function of this state of mind. What is the function of this thought? We begin to insert discernment, independent thinking, deep inquiry, and essentially what we would call mindful intelligence. So mindfulness is not just the practice of being present, but it's the most interesting and the most organic experience of evolving our intelligence, which I think is the very basis of Ora and Ben's Institute. Is transformational thinking is the practice of evolving intelligence, mindful intelligence.
Beautiful. So beautiful, Alan. I want to just share and chime into that about how you bring up our senses. And it's something that I find is really how I gauge my present awareness is really by how awake and alert and receptive and open my senses are. It's a wonderful way, it's a wonderful compass for me to be able to sense, if you will, about my senses, that how well am I hearing another person speak? How well am I seeing them? How well am I smelling this rose? Do you know? How sensitive to the touch am I feeling? And how would I think that another would like to feel by my touch? Do you know, I love that you mentioned the senses, because for me, that's really my barometer in so many ways of how I pass through the days and take in, you know, have I rushed through this meal? Have I hurried when I smelled this flower? Do you know? How appreciative am I by the gifts of the senses that I have, that I am so present with all that I'm experiencing in this way? Do you know? This heightened sense of awareness is really a gift to my senses, to my aliveness. And from there, we can then give so much more of ourselves to others. We don't want to half touch somebody. We don't want to, you know, half eat a meal with pleasure. Do you know, we don't want to half listen. I could not half listen to the beautiful words of which you just spoke. Do you know? So for me, it's a wonderful way in which to, it accompanies me throughout the day, that if my senses are quite alert and very open and receptive, I know that I am on the right track of a mindful awareness of my beingness during my doingness, if I am in fact doing anything. How awake and alive and alert am I in all that I'm doing, and that all that I am receiving and all that I'm giving?
Beautiful, beautiful. That's really lovely, Ora. It really inspired me to go down this, to expand further into this, wonderful dialogue about the beauty and the power. Really, I reserve that word power, but it is a great emotional, mental, psychological power to bring presence, mindful, intelligent, transformational presence to our lives. And as you just so beautifully expressed, caring for the quality of our presence is perhaps one of the finest aesthetics that we can embody in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I dare say this just with calm and poise. Both my parents have passed on this last year, and I had the good fortune to live a long time with them. They lived to 96 years old. They really were ready to go. But having spent time with my mom, especially in the final days of her life, she was unable to walk. Her hands could not even grasp something due to the agedness of her body. And yet there was a remarkable alertness and that deep soulfulness of being present with me. And she looked at me with so much love and said, Alan, these hands can no longer hold. These knees can no longer bend. I can't walk without the aid of others. Do not take for granted. I know you've practiced mindfulness for years and I'm honest. Do not take for granted, Alan, a minute of our lives of being embodied in this form, with eyes and ears, nose, the tongue, a body and legs and hands and family, a context. We are alive in this body, she was communicating to me. What will you do with the preciousness of your human life? And I think that's what Ora is pointing to here. In the power of mindfulness, it's really inspiring us as we wake up in the day. It's not just enough to be mindful. It's important how we eat, who we associate with, what we do physically and emotionally, what is our daily yoga as beingness, and within that, a heightened degree of this timeless, beautiful, transformational quality of present time presence called mindfulness. And when I meet someone, when I listen to something, when I read someone, are you consciously making a choice to do that, or is it a pattern of habit? That's what I'm hearing Ora say. Examine the quality of our choices and live in this purposeful presence and bring as much to bear as we can, as complex as it may be a lot of the time. Bring that mindful intelligence to bear there. Assert patience, assert compassion, assert love. And what my mom told me before she died, Alan, it's not enough to think about love. Tell someone that not only do you love them, but what is it about them that you love? And this is where mindfulness becomes really an evolutional expression of your goodness. Another way to look at it, an evolutional expression of your timeless, beautiful goodness. And with mindfulness, keep making choices. For example, it's not enough to want something for someone. It's not enough to be the recipient of a thought of generosity. We want to act on that feeling of generosity. Mindfulness is our mind, is our hands, is our legs, is our intention, is our innovation. Mindfulness allows us to manifest our lives. It's not just observing our lives. It is the very thing called existence.
And so that is a beautiful transition into our second point, the relationship between individual and planetary peace. Either one of you, do you want to pick that up?
You go ahead, Ora. You take your time.
I just a quick, sort of come to my present thought of that question is that, I don't see a separation. I see a cohabiting, if you will, a cohabitation of individual and planetary peace. I view our relationship between individual and planetary peace as one and the same. And speaking of mindfulness and the way in which Alan and I are opening the door to welcoming and receiving the precious guests of he and I in this conversation, the way in which I practice peace within my own heart and in my own life with friends, family, and even strangers determines my contribution to planetary peace. Do you know? That is the relationship, that they are one and the same to me. My understanding of self, my understanding of my inner beingness of peace helps me understand the very peace that the world asks of me and so desperately wants and needs right now. That if I cannot resolve my own inner conflicts, if I cannot find my own inner harmony, if I cannot find the peace and the love that I can offer up to those that are nearest and dearest to me, then I cannot support and contribute to the peace needed for this planet. Do you know? This for me is all the oneness, the wholeness that exists synergistically. That peace, there is no beginning and end to peace. It's ongoing. And my relationship, my mindful awareness of what peace means to me and my valuing of it and my supporting it and my nurturing and my transformational conversing with others, my mindful awareness of the art of discourse and how I speak to others, and all that I do in my actions and my behavior and my words is what contributes to this global, peaceful awareness that each and every one of us is a part of. Do you know? It doesn't begin and end for me. It's a continuum. Peace is an ongoing aspiration. It's an ongoing requirement of being alive and participating in this global conversation that we must have with one another and continue to make peace our number one priority right now, because we are living in a time where conflict and dissent and so much of what is ailing this planet is because it yearns so much. It is screaming out for peace now more than ever.
Ora, beautiful. Thank you for that wonderful reminder of the essentialness of being peace, as it was said, rather than so much overemphasizing the need for a larger, more global peace. Be the peace that you seek. I think it was Gandhi that said that. May I say a few words that came up listening to you, Ora? And allow me just to say them again spontaneously. They may or may not congeal into something coherent, but the intention is to address, Ben, the role, the relationship between the individual and the global, planetary. Having been both blessed and cursed to be such a son of the people of Burma, a child of the Burmese family, having been a monk there, having been thrown out of the country numerous times by the regime, the dictatorship there, having had the good fortune back in 1995 to co-author a book with the Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, having spent 6 months with she and her colleagues after their release from torture and imprisonment. I've studied dictatorship. I've studied authoritarian governments. Many conclude today that we as Americans are living in one, the emergence of a new form of corporate totalitarianism in which we're almost clogs in a wheel unknowingly, almost as if we're like participating within the machinery of corporate totalitarianism. The distinction between oppression today and willing servitude is a very fine line. So when we talk about peace, we have to really define oppression. And oppression to me are structures known or unknown, imagined or real, that denigrate the human spirit, that denigrate human consciousness, that denigrate the planet, that denigrate our food sources, that denigrate, that violate, that exploit. And so the study of mindfulness is the study of energy. The study of peace is the study of energy. The study of mindfulness is to feel, as we talked about earlier, to feel the functioning of states of consciousness. We want planetary peace, but do we embody peace? And the basis of peace, as I studied it in Burma, was very much the Gandhian concept. Call off the war on trying to transform others and only cease your participation, Alan, in your own recognized collusion with your own fear, your own unrecognized collusion with your own anger, your own unrecognized collusion with your own blame. That alone, Alan, study the machinations of judgment, blame, and projection, and you will cease being an annoyance to a lot of people. So when we talk about peace, it's a grandiose ideal, but for me personally, at this stage of my life, my Dharma life, it comes right back to how can I be more intimately awake and embodied as a gentle, loving, open, intimate man. And my sphere of influence, I have to say, is remarkably small. I'm like most connected to about 5 or 6 different people, my family, my friends, the people that I care about, my daughter. And therein lies where, in that constellation, is where I'm either elevating the status of these people, or I'm neutral, or I'm gone to sleep at the wheel, or in fact, I'm in some unrecognized doubt, fear, judgment, greed, anger, or blame. And so I really advocate for those who are activists, whatever form of activism, whether it be, Snowden or Julian Assange, or even perhaps Donald Trump will listen to this podcast, or this important, everyone can change. And that, to me, by being the heightened energy of peace, the most organic expression of kindness, is more important than another person changing their lives. I'd rather be the light than to illuminate the darkness. And let me conclude with this. Having had the good fortune to be near radical revolutionaries, people who went to prison voluntarily to not participate in the machinations of dictatorship and oppression. They preferred to live in the sanctity of their conscience than to violate another person. That's a very important point that I learned, is we do what we do because it's right, not that it stands a chance of success. We stand in the soul of mindfulness, which is conscience, which is learning the art, the mindful, intelligent art of right from wrong, how we speak, how we think, how we act, and have those 3 expressions of our humanity informed by compassionate conscience. And let me conclude with this. When I talked to Aung San Suu Kyi after her first release, and along with her colleagues who had been released from solitary confinement, I said, you folks are leading a nonviolent, feminine-inspired revolution of the spirit, as you call it. What would you say the essence of it is? She said to me, and they all said, Alan, courage. The courage to care about things larger than your own self-interest. That is the intelligence of mindfulness, is courage and caring. She said, you were out on the street when we gave a talk to the people who dared to confront dictatorship and gathered peacefully. All of them could have gone to prison, lost their homes, but they rather stand in conscience and compassion than to cower in fear and collusion with oppression. They made conscious choices. Ben, Ora, Alan, all of us in the world who are listening, when we want to bring peace, are we embodying conscious choice in our thought, in our speech, in our action? Are those three avenues of inner beingness made real on the platform or the canvas or the theater stage of life? What states of mind are they informed by? That is the activist mindset. Know your own mind, Alan. That was told to me over and over again. And Aung San Suu Kyi concluded, Alan, it takes one person at a time. That's all. Be the example that we want to be. And if enough people do that, our revolution will be successful. Well, 28 years have gone by. There's been convulsions. There's been good. There's been bad. Who among us can judge the overthrow of dictatorship? Men with weapons who put good women and men in prison and torture them. That is a challenge of epic proportions. And they've done it and they do it, and we will do it in America and around the world, one person at a time. I believe that. Peace will prevail if we understand the power of conscious choice. What do I want to bring to the present time presence that is the essence of my being? Is it love? Is it kindness? Is it listening? Be the peace that we seek.
Beautiful, Alan. Beautiful. You know, you mentioned earlier one of my favorite quotes, Gandhi's quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And that quote has always stayed with me and will continue to stay with me with the days ahead. But what does that really mean? Be the change. How can I, Ora, how can you, Alan, as you speak of taking ownership, taking responsibility, that it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to make choices for how we choose to be the change in our own lives and then take that out into the world. Do you know, I do say with my Institute for Transformational Thinking, changing the world one thought at a time, taking responsibility for the thoughts that we have, the thoughts that we harbor. Are they thoughts of compassion? Are they thoughts of kindness? Are they thoughts of love? Are they thoughts of peace? You know, you spoke of earlier as well about what lives inside us. What are the areas within us that we must make peace with? And there's a wonderful quote by Petrarch that says, 5 enemies of peace inhabit with us: avarice, ambition, envy, anger, and pride. If these were to be banished, we should infallibly enjoy perpetual peace. And that is all of our work. Each and every one of us holds those in our own beings: ambition, avarice, envy, anger, and pride. And how mindful are we about what we hold inside ourselves, that we are not being brutally honest about ourselves, of those behaviors and those actions and those words and those intentions. Are they fully imbued with light and love? Do you know, as you said, Alan, you choose to be the light. Those are choices. We choose to be the light. Do you know? We don't need to always think about how we can light the darkness. If we choose to be the light, if each of us makes those choices, you speak of the word choice, which I like so much, to be able to take responsibility for what we choose to do and how we choose to be. These are very simple choices to make. One doesn't need to overtax their mind in deciding to be kind and compassionate and come from a place of love and support peace as much as we possibly can. Is it really that difficult to make those choices within ourselves and then to act on those choices that we've made? Do you know? I consider so much of this, I say simple wisdom because I believe that truth, the true essence of what holds true for us and the universe, is basically very simple. Love, kindness, and compassion. These are words that we hear, and then we tangle them up in these places in our minds that keep us stuck in these areas that, to speak of Petrarch's quote, if we were to banish those things within ourselves, we will infallibly enjoy perpetual peace. Do we not want that? Do we not wish for that? Do we not seek that out? What is it that we seek, if not that?
Beautiful. Lovely. Beautiful. You know, I'm compelled by this third point that we have here to speak about, to bring some transformational intelligence to, creating revolutionary social change through mindfulness, through mindful intelligence. If we could enter that.
Yep, let's go for it. So point 3, creating revolutionary social change through mindfulness. Go for it.
You know, I would like to follow on what Ora is saying here in both the poignancy and the beauty of the phrase that you used, Ora, simple wisdom. We enter transformational thinking. We're now within the beauty and the sanctity of an important institute, a global institute, a global online institute brought forth by Ora and Ben and Jules and the team of people behind this important endeavor. I'm honored to be a part of it. I've known Ora for decades. A remarkable mind, a remarkable individual, a compassionate, committed person. And I could not encourage people anywhere in the world, all sectors, beyond religion, beyond culture, beyond language, participate now more than ever. And this important issue of creating revolutionary social change through mindfulness, you know, how to simplify that in a way that light begets light, that a revolution truly, as cliched as that is today, is started. Let us not fall victim, one, to apathy or fear or terror or doubt or be convinced that it won't work out. Let us be the other side of the envelope, which says, you know, the impossible can be done if, in fact, I embody one basic quality to start. Let me feel the power of my own worth. Having studied political prisoners around the world, having spent 30, 35 years looking into the institution of men and women, boys and girls who consciously are willing to sit at the front of the bus, to defy the orders of Nazis, to do whatever is required to not forgo the power of their conscience, they embody what Viktor Frankl talks about is the power of dignity, their own self-worth right here, right now. And meditation, eyes wide open meditation, heart wide open meditation, activism, revolutionary social change, is about the ability to stand in dignity, to walk in dignity, to breathe in dignity. How many people I spoke to that had been in prison in Burma, political prisoners, and I asked them, how did you manage to live for 19 years in solitary? How did you manage to live in a cell meant for 5 with 8 people where you alternated how you stood or slept? How did you do this, boys and girls, men and women? They said, Alan, we refused to believe that although we were incarcerated, that our freedom was taken from us. It was a choice. Freedom is a choice. It's an interior state of consciousness. The way that we sat in our cell, the way that we breathed in dignity. And to me, that's always become the basis of my meditation today. When I sit quietly in my home, when I'm walking, talking to a friend, what is my physical posture? Am I sitting? Am I eating? Am I listening from a place of judgment, from a place of contraction, or from a place of quiet respect for my innate worth as a man? From that accessing, I would only emphasize one other thing, and I'll turn it over to Ora here. Activism, which of course is crucial, revolutionary social change, which is essential, to me comes back to, what am I going to do with my thoughts? How well do I think? Am I thinking the thoughts that I want to think? Am I being mindful of my own mind and realizing these thoughts I want to think, I want to cultivate? These thoughts, Alan, you have a choice. Namaste them, let them go right through the sky of consciousness. From where they came and where they go, let them go like a bird in the sky, and stand in the thinking processes that you want. When you speak, Alan, are you choosing to speak truthfully? Do you know the emotion of truthfulness in your own soul? Become mindfully acquainted with truth-telling as vocation. Is what you're saying right now, are you choosing those words, or are they patterned languages that you've memorized? Mindfulness in the art of transformation is a type of aesthetic, a poetry. My daughter, watching her learn language over the years of her life, she struggled, she grappled, she joyously embodied the new sound in her own soul. Mindfulness is a joyous activity of choosing our states of mind and choosing the words of consciousness and choosing our thoughts, choosing our words. Timing, tone. When I'm listening to activists speak in Burma, they're not thinking about overthrowing dictatorship when I was there. They were thinking about, what is the tone of the word that I'm choosing? Like an artist with choosing colors. They choose tonality. Is the tone of my words with kindness, with clarity, with truthfulness, with compassion? See your life as a mindful artist. That's the Institute of Transformation, is embodying the motif inside of our souls of incessant, elegant choice making. And finally, Aung San Suu Kyi would encourage people, I listen to her over and over again, what is the intention of what you're saying? What do you really intend? We can say the most eloquent, beautiful words, well-timed, but if the intention is coercion or oppression, people suspect that about you. You can feel it in your own mind. A mindful individual is dedicated to mindfully releasing any corruption of the soul and reoccupying their mind with a better intention of kindness and conscience. And the last thing, as an activist, I'd recommend anyone concerned with change is to do what we do because it's right. It may not be successful in the way that we think. And so to be very mindful, if you will, of an attachment to a preferred outcome. How many times I watched in Burma, people living from loving kindness, offering sanctity even to the enemy. It was seen as a violation. We cannot control the mind of other people. You do what you do because it's right. And sometimes, we all know it very well, no matter how well we do life, there'll be those who disagree. There'll be those who oppress. World wars are fought. We have seen it. Do what we do because it's right. Live in the freedom that you seek. Be the activism because you know It's a truthful thing. And the last thing, you know, from my generation, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, we obsessively took mindfulness to mean mindfulness of oneself. But today I invite, and I think the Transformational Institute here of Transformational Thinking is deeply rooted in a caring for the future of existence. Compassion is a far-reaching quality that looks over the horizon. Mindfulness allows us to have vision. And so when we ask about revolutionary change, boys and girls anywhere around the world, what do you dream of? Take that magic wand of your soul, mindfully create a light in the sky, and put on that star called your horizon. What do you want to see for the future of life? Go towards it. Make it real.
Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful, Alan. You know, I think of freedom, and I don't mean political freedom. I think of something that we all have, the freedom that we all have, and it's called our thinking mind, our freedom to think whatever we choose. Again, to use that word, Alan, that you've spoken of a few times in this conversation, the choice to think what we choose to think. Do you know, whether you're somebody who speaks of the freedom in your mind and you are oppressed, and even if you are put in a jail cell in solitary confinement, that is something that cannot be taken from you, and that is your thinking mind. That will be with you until you take your last breath. And that freedom that can't be defined by religion, by politics, by anything outside of ourselves, that lives in each and every one of us, and it's called our freedom to think as we choose to. The freedom to paint those beautiful pictures as you describe, and I speak so much about the visions that are created from a single seed, a thought that we hold in our mind's eye and then can manifest outside of ourselves so beautifully. That brings to mind to me the works of a Chopin, the paintings of a Van Gogh, the invention of a Tesla. Do you know that these visions that we hold in our own minds, that no one can ever rob or take from us, that nobody can tell us, no, you can't hold that vision in your mind. No, you can't see that picture in your mind. No, you can't hear the notes of that symphony in your mind. That is the ultimate freedom, and no one can ever rob us of that. It's heartbreaking to see how people are stripped of that, or there are attempts to be stripped of one's own original thinking mind and how they perceive and see the world. And we know that wars have been fought and will continue to be fought because people thought differently. And people perceived differently. And people saw the sun rise and set in their own way. And nobody can dictate to someone else how they should see and behold something as beautiful as a sunrise or a sunset. So whether you are in a jail cell or whether you are lying on the beach watching the sun set or the sun rise, you can always imagine that in your mind. No one can take that away from you. And you speak of children. I have children of my own. The greatest gift that we can give to our children is to never stop imagining of what they can be and then what they can be out in this world. And that this world can always become the vision that we hold in our mind's eye. And what I, Ora, hold in my mind's eye, what I envision is possible for the world, I can share that with you, Alan, and with Ben, and all those people that I come into contact with and say, this is my vision for not only my peace, but the peace of how I wish to see this world. And if we all can hold those images in our mind's eye and believe in the truth of human existence, that it is not to war, it is not to hate, it is not to oppress, it is not to kill. That is not real. Those are the illusions. Those are man's illusions of what he thinks he must conquer out of his own fear. And we are not that. We didn't come into the world as that. We mustn't forget that we did not come in as these pure divine spirits that are in this vehicle, as you described so beautifully about your mother, Alan, until the vehicle no longer can transport us to where we want to go. And we must retire that vehicle, and what leaves is this beautiful spirit that imagines and creates and knows the truth of what this existence really is, and that is love and peace and light. That is it.
Beautiful. Such a powerful, profound conversation. Really extraordinary and thought-provoking. I especially love what you said, Alan, about embodying the motif of incessant, elegant choice-making. Really wonderful. Thank you both for everything that you've shared. We're nearing the end of the webinar today. I'd like to invite both of you to offer any closing remarks before we end.
Ora, shall I say a couple of minutes?
Yes, please do.
Well, to you, Divine Lady, and I bow my humble heart to the vision of your creation here. I think it's not only essential, I think it's crucial that you are reaching out to the globe, the world, cross-culturally. And Ben and Jules, all of the people involved in this remarkable endeavor, that you're doing what you're doing is an act of radical courage and conscience. And I'm honored to be a small part of that today and in the future. I would like to close with something very simple and connected to what you said, Ora, the word beauty. Few people in the world know that mindfulness and beauty are synonymous. And the reason I say that is that, in fact, one of the most respected mindfulness teachers in modernity, my preceptor as a Buddhist monk, the Venerable Sayadaw, Mahasi Sayadaw of Burma, his name was Sobhana. And through him, the word Sobhana, a Pali Buddhist word, means beautiful states of mind. He was the one who introduced me to the concept that mindfulness training in the original language of the Buddhist teaching was known and is known as bhavana, Bhavana, which means not only mind intelligence training, but it means the beautification of consciousness. And so the way I learned mindfulness was very much connected to seeing mind presence as a flower opening. And I was encouraged, Alan, a flower opens by understanding light, minerals, water. Be connected to that which supports the opening of your own heart, your opening of your own being. Study the energies of your own light, your own soil, your own water, your own minerals. And there's no way that you can examine the darkness between the petals to open the flower. It's delusional, it's pathological. Mindfulness transformation training is non-pathological. It supports the goodness of good. By being good, by being kind, by being loving, by being beautiful, the flower of mind opens. So when we practice mindfulness, when we show up in our lives, for me, the most important thing is to keep it simple. Choice making to be in the beauty that you want to be. Choose your beautiful state of mind and learn how to familiarize ourselves with the opening of our own heart. So in that sense, to see that the Institute of Transformational Thinking is the embodiment of bhavana, mindful intelligence, mindfulness practice, which is the good, the true, and the beautiful. What are the states of consciousness that we ourselves today can identify, can embody, and make real on the promise of thought, of speech, and action? And there, may the transformation of the world into the future be made one moment, one person at a time.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Alan. First of all, I want to also say to you, my dear friend, who I've known for a very long time, and we have had this same conversation many times, haven't we?
We have.
We have spoken about truth and love and light. Many of the words that we chose today in this conversation have been with us from the very beginning, from when we first met. So many of our conversations, so many of the times we sat and talked and drank tea together, we always spoke of these same words, and we always looked to light and love and truth as our guides. And I always feel that they were woven into our conversations time and time again. And I know will continue to accompany us on this journey as we speak about this many times in the days ahead. I want to also say about mindfulness is that mindfulness is, for me, very unconditional. Mindfulness is always there. Mindfulness is always there and takes me back into the moment if or when I step out of it. And it welcomes me again and again unconditionally, without judgment, with acceptance. And it acknowledges me. And it lets me know that I am home. It tells me that I am where I am meant to be. And for that, I am eternally grateful that mindfulness accompanies me on this journey and will always remind me that it is there with me as my most faithful companion on this life journey. And by knowing that mindfulness is with me in my own state of consciousness, that the awareness of even knowing that mindfulness and I are one, and that it is my own awareness and my own knowingness and my own awakened self that then mirrors to me that, oh yes, I am present. I am here in this moment of now, in the acceptance of the beauty, in the abundance of this thing called life. And I would just like to end it by saying that for all of our listeners to come home to yourself, come home to your heart, and come home to this glorious place called your thinking mind, and know that you can, again, to use your word, Alan, that you use so abundantly today, choose your thoughts carefully, choose them wisely, let them help you, let them be the colors to paint that beautiful picture that is your masterpiece, just waiting to happen. That you have the vision in you of greatness that makes for those that were able to manifest their visions before us. That we have that greatness in us. All we need to do is just go home again to our hearts and know that everything is there, and we will never be led astray if we stay connected to what is most real and most true in our hearts.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ora. That was lovely. Thank you both for being here, for your time, and for sharing such extraordinary wisdom for us to contemplate, reflect on, and put into action. Thank you so much to all the students, listeners, and participants. Please make sure to download the free printable PDF workbook designed specifically to help you take this wisdom and apply it into your own lives. For more information on Alan Clements, his work in activism and mindfulness, please visit worlddharma.com. For more information on Ora Nadrich, the Institute for Transformational Thinking, and her Thought Coach certification training, visit theiFTT.org.
I'm very excited through the Institute for Transformational Thinking to offer up my first online program, the Thought Coach Certification Training Program. And this is what we've been talking about. This is really calling all transformational leaders. This is saying, come lead with us. Join me for this extraordinary 4-week program where you can begin this incredibly important inquiry of the self to know your thinking mind as well as you possibly can so that you can put transformation into effect, first and foremost for yourself, and then become a transformational coach, a thought coach, so that you can be a leader to others and help them awaken to their own thinking mind. It is going to be an incredible journey that we are going to take together on this path of transformational thinking.
Yes, our team has put so much effort into taking Ora's wisdom, the teachings in her book, and everything into an extraordinary 4-week program with online video workshops, live calls, daily lessons, and everything you need to launch as a thought coach. Everything you need to know about coaching ethics, working with clients, beginning that process, and what to do in different circumstances. There are over 20 different tools and techniques that Ora has designed specifically for developing healthy thinking habits. So for more information on Ora Nadrich, Dr. Ronald Alexander, and the Institute for Transformational Thinking, as well as the Thought Coach Certification Training Program, please visit theiFTT.org. Thank you all for being here. Thanks again.